Hello. 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 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey, yeah. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good morning. Good evening.
So an introduction to CIB, Conseiller International du
Red button for on.
So welcome online. Who's joined us online? Hello online, it's Don Ward speaking. Are people online able to see the slide deck? That didn't last long. Okay. I guess they came to the wrong session. Oops. It says watch this space for a new industry award. So you don't need to watch this space anymore. Well, you can watch that space if you like. Can I get that back? I want to just on the screen. Thank you. So watch this space for a new ECR industry award. As on Monday morning, it was announced the CIB Hampson, CIB Keith Hampson Award for Early Career Researcher Industry Collaboration, reflecting Keith's own personal career and values in terms of the best research for impact is that which is done in collaboration with the industry. So Keith has launched a new award and endowed it for 10 years, and CIB has matched that endowment, so there is an annual prize which will be presented, which is now open for competition, and will be closing date for which is November, and will be presented.
Announce the criteria, I think, very shortly.
So the board approved the criteria for that yesterday, and the contest is live. So they've got 4 months-ish to enter. I really hope we get some great entries because I want to do Keith proud. And I'm sure everybody here knows that Keith is the immediate past president as of about 8:30 a.m. this morning. And the new president is Makaran Hassan, seamlessly across the bar, who I'm going to introduce to take over in a moment or two. One of the most important things that Mark has led as Vice President of CIB is some work on third-party funding, and the point about that was this point about diversifying revenue, which when successful, and when really successful, allows us to reduce membership subscriptions in such a way that we grow the membership because it's cheaper, whilst not impacting on our revenue because that's coming from other sources such as those. Now we can talk about that in more detail later if any of you want to, just as we can talk about vistas in more detail if any of you want to. Mark tomorrow will, well actually this must be the point where I sit down and you take over, Mark. Go ahead. No, I don't think it's good that I start describing your priorities, not with you in the booth anyway.
You want to do it?
Right. No, I don't.
Well, thanks, Don. So as Don pointed out, so some of the things that we were debating, what we should do to take us now to the next level. Keith has done a fantastic job. But there are a few things that were coming up even during the last 3 years that we definitely need to address in a very positive sense. And so you'll see that 3 most important priorities being membership growth, new value-added proposition, and then growing CIB's profile and influence, so that we can keep the young generation of academics excited about CIB, get them engaged, and make sure that they see a value proposition that's going to help them in their career, and that goes equally said for all members. So a few things that you will see under membership growth, and these are thoughts, and please add more if you think we could add more things to it. So new global industry advisory board. I've heard talking to many of you that we have moved away from our links with the industry. And so one way of keeping our research at more contemporary level, as in what is really needed in the industry and how we can address some of those issues, could be to have a new global industry advisory board. Now, there's some subtle benefits to that. Besides keeping us knowledgeable about the contemporary issues, those same industry advisory board members can also support the local student chapters. They can support the local academics who are champions for the student chapters. So what we would be doing by establishing this link is that an industry advisory board member can be that industry mentor for the student clubs that are in that particular region, and also perhaps through corporate funds financially support their participation in WBC and some of the other events, and be able to support students in that sense. So we are not asking them to provide funds to this global organization that they may not really relate to, but what we're really asking them is to support the local student chapters and the local faculty from where they draw their employees. So make financially more stable, continue the third-party funding initiative. Don alluded to that a little bit earlier, but what we have done in the past couple of years is that we have reached out to industry supporters, we have reached out to government supporters to see what type of research projects that they are willing to support and are their priorities, and how can we tie a global network of researchers. And if you just look at the number of commissions we have, the task groups we have a fantastic cross-section of research. So if there is any need that any entity has, I'm sure that we can put together a group of researchers who are passionate about that area and can show results. So we have that strength, and we want to market that strength to these entities. So what we've done is we have recruited Andrew Pride. He's an independent consultant in Canada to talk to various funding agencies within Canada and identify what their research needs are. And this has been going on for almost a year now. And he has reached out to the banks, he has reached out to some of the other government agencies, and they have given a laundry list of what are their priorities, what is it that they're looking to fund for research. And our goal is to match their needs with our group talents and go for a research project that entity would fund. And what better way of bringing collaborative research, which is the basis of CIB. So that's really the purpose of third-party funding. And then there are a few other initiatives. Don and I, we visited World Bank and UN agencies, and we're talking to people to see how their support could be garnered again and taken to the next level. So we had a UN visit a few months back. Under new value-added propositions, increase collaborative research, of course, by facilitating collaboration among members, as I was talking about, coordinating funding agencies and their requirements, and putting the teams together. These projects, we intend to run them through the headquarters, so that is the agency through which, or contractual agency, so to say, and then all of the researchers, wherever they are, they get reimbursed for their expenses, their student expenses, whatever it is. So it'd be a channel. What is the benefit for CIB in that, you might say? Well, a number of things. First, we would be engaging in collaborative research. Number two, if it is run through the headquarters, then the overhead gets retained at the headquarters, which is going to defray some of the expenses for the organization. And the results are delivered anyway, because everybody else is covered as far as their expenses are concerned. So everybody turns out to be a winner in this particular engagement. We also want to put together a directory of member expertise. And that came about because as we were talking to these funding agencies, Mike was a good resource in identifying that, okay, which commission is dealing with which topics and which areas, so we can bring them together. But if you already have a directory of expertise available to us, then it's very easy. More so if it is online, people can log in and say, I'm looking for this expertise. I know where to go, who to talk to, and that's definitely a benefit. Not only for members, but also for external entities as well. So establish internship for faculty and early career researchers with UN, World Bank, postdoc opportunities for young researchers in different universities, those who are in sabbatical, trying to match them with sabbatical opportunities that might be coming up. So this is definitely a benefit that we as academics look for, and it is readily available. It's there. Just that if we put the network together, channel it through the secretariat, it's just facilitation at that point. But it's definitely a proposition, in my opinion, that connects the different entities together. Particularly if you're able to convince UN and World Bank and some of these other ADBs and so on, that we have researchers that can add value. And they do take postdocs. So how can we facilitate that? Right? So that way we have inside roads and links forming into World Bank, into the UN, into some of the ADBs and others, or the Asian development banks and African development banks. I mean, and so I think that's definitely a plus in that sense. Well, how do we grow CIB profile and influence? As I mentioned, we are looking at sustainable development agenda. You probably noticed that some of us are wearing this ring. So what I did was, there's a hole in between, and I was looking to put my CIB pin. I said, well, what other place than to put right in the middle? So that sort of speaks to volumes that we are all focusing on all of these 17, 18 different areas. So definitely, if we channel our energies towards the sustainable development goals, then we can align easily with the UN, we can align easily with some of the other funding agencies who are also wanting to provide funding in that area. And all our speakers this morning, yesterday, I think they were all touching upon these issues. So clearly it is of importance in everybody's mind. World Bank, global charitable foundations, large global businesses, these are the target areas or entities that the third-party funding group has identified. And slowly and surely with the strategy, we are approaching them with a proposal by understanding what their needs are and facilitate that collaborative effort. One thing that perhaps you would all appreciate is that we are looking at starting what we call as a CIB day. What that really means is that there'll be a showcasing what CIB has to offer and make it sort of a fair, where we have entities coming in and going out, there are stalls and booths and information sessions about what is CIB all about, the research outputs, the student chapters that are local to that area could be showcasing their projects and what research they've been working on, so that people get to know what is the CIB thing, what is it? And perhaps if you're more strategic about it, we can have industry participants and other universities come to that event and perhaps be excited. But it's a celebration. It's a celebration of what CIB has achieved in that particular area. So the intent is to have this CIB day throughout the world, hopefully the same day, and events happening. So broad vision, let's see how far we are able to take it. I think the value add would be tremendous. Women in construction, that is a very super priority area. And we heard this morning, a couple of our speakers were also referring to their agenda in terms of increasing women in construction. And I think we need to be strategic about it. We need to be able to, as a global body, if you're able to promote that vision and identify ways of how it could be done, perhaps as best practices. The way we do it in the US is not the same as you do in UK or you do in Australia or somewhere else. But what are the best practices that have worked for you that are equally likely to work for us? So I think as collective intellectual minds, we can figure something out that can influence positively the outcome in this particular direction. So definitely a super important agenda there. And then, of course, successful World Building Congress in 2025. We already Z is going to be our co-chair in organizing the World Building Congress in 2025. And we are looking forward to having all of you on our campus at Purdue. West Lafayette is a university town, but we are going to have the conference in Indianapolis and West Lafayette. Indianapolis is 60 miles away, but it's a bigger city. Much more to offer in terms of social opportunities, and but we have a beautiful campus as well. So we're still brainstorming, but we want to combine those two visions and make sure that whatever 600, 700, 800 that we expect would come, have a very pleasant experience at our campus. So that being said, that covers my agenda that I wanted to talk about. And Don, back to you.
Okay, well, thank you. We'll start in a minute. We'll literally stop in a minute. There's no one online. I don't want to disenfranchise anyone online. They're equally entitled to pass in Scotland.
Yes, we've got one person. They heard on that.
They heard on that because he was using the mic. So I need to use the mic, right? Okay. That's great. And who has joined us online, just so I know who. Hi there. Good to see you online. Thanks for joining us. I hope you can hear us and I hope you can participate in our discussion. To finish, we've got a sizable menu there, haven't we? And in 2025, we will announce substantial achievement against all of those goals, I am sure. There are other ideas. These ideas have all been said to me in my earshot, not necessarily in my conversation, but in my earshot within the last few weeks. So we are not short of ideas. And what Mark has done is think about how we focus these ideas into a coherent agenda where we will make a difference over the next 3 years. But there are ideas around how we add more value in terms of research, in terms of an annual impact report, collecting together the best case studies of impact from amongst our membership, ideas for the industry that would add value for industry and therefore encourage them to come into the organisation and support in the ways Mark is talking about. And even, ideas about, well, CIB is the global network for research. Could it add value as also being in part a global network around education? There are education networks, of course there are. There aren't many that operate at a global level with the potential reach that CIB would have. I do want to raise one thing
of this presentation
really,
today. How do we improve the impact of conferences? To what extent can face-to-face be the norm in future? I know there are plenty of people in the CIB network who think we will go back to that previous world where the default position was a face-to-face conference. But webinars work well in their place, and there is a big question about whether the added value of face-to-face contact, discussions and networking is now clear. Ironically, it probably is clearer as a result of not having been able to experience it for the last 19 months. But we're going to need to articulate it more strongly because restrictions on travel to me look inevitable, whether those are imposed by governments or by corporate policies or by individual choice. And so the case will have to be made for face-to-face attendance at conferences. It will be at a premium, and conferences, we collectively need to ensure attendance in person is worth the extra cost, time and carbon, and that means innovating the formats, the contents and the outputs of conferences. And I look forward again to the debate and the discussion around some of those ideas.
So there you are. That was me speaking in December 2021 at a conference that was nominally held in Dubai as a joint conference between two of CIB's working commissions. And that was my contribution to a debate on the future of conferences. It's really important that CIB take a lead on this in terms of true leadership of the research sector, in terms of our own Congress in 2025. So, at some point within the next year, I do feel CIB needs to take a decision about Indianapolis 2025. But I think corporately and strategically and in terms of leadership, we should also take a position or publish a position. Doesn't mean it's either or, far from it. It just sets out some helpful things to think about if you're thinking about the format of conferences. That is genuinely just my opinion. That is not something that has been discussed with CIB's board or indeed any working commission or anything else. Anyway, so to end the sort of first half of our session, I want to return to this slide because this is sort of broad, as helpful a framework as anything. If I remove the detail of it, there is a framework there. when we talk about re-energizing CIB, what we're trying to do is make sure CIB adds more and more value for its members, for its other stakeholders. And as good a set of headings for that, as you saw in Mark's presentation as well, a decent framework for that is Global Network for Research Collaboration. Well, it's the Vistas, frankly. It is the Vistas, and I could have put that framework up and probably should have done. But I put this framework up as happens. But, you know, at that point, I'll shut up, and we are just back into listening mode and chat, really, discussion about any aspect of what you've heard or plenty of aspects that you haven't heard. Thank you.
And please feel free to shoot down any idea that was listed.
Yeah, we're not shrinking violets here, are we? We can take the knocks. Any comments from online? Please. It's just.
I mean, I'm loud,
it's
but
just
because of the.
I know it's for the gentleman online.
I actually have a couple of questions. So shame on me that I don't know that maybe, but so the first is if you don't go to your very first or second slide, can you go in the present? Can we? I believe it's second. I just have a question that was, it was interesting observation. So when you describe CIB, which is not the exact French translation to English, collaboration for innovation in the built environment. In the United States, when we say built environment, there is kind of loose probably identity with AEC, right? We think about AEC industry, architectural engineering construction, which is quite different from specifically talking about buildings and construction. So I was wondering, I know that probably it's not new topic, and probably somebody sometimes raised that question, but what I see, the people, the participants, the papers, there is just so much coming from that architectural and engineering side, besides construction or construction management. And I'm just, loudly thinking, are we limiting ourselves by kind of throwing that terms building and construction and kind of excluding a pretty huge market of people that might not be aware that there is so much for them also coming from mainly engineering world and even architecture. So that's just a kind of question which probably, and the second, no, right. Correct. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. But do the people from let's say civil engineering department at school ABC, do they know that and do they feel that way? Even Purdue, if I take my colleague Mark, if you look, there are 4 or 5 of us. Majority of us are from construction management side. And Mark is the only one from construction engineering and management. I know that there are people coming from civil. My point is probably it's not well known that there is so much that these faculty members from maybe mechanical engineering as related to built environment. That was my concern. And it's a kind of more comment. I know that. And the second quick question is about the membership. Do we have a single fee for, let's say, whatever category, associate member, university A, everybody pays the same price, or do we have adjusted fees like some other organizations have, depending if you are coming from the developing countries, they use United Nations. Do we have that? Okay, got it. So, okay, thank you. I apologize for taking time. I wasn't sure. So.
I could get very wound up about a lot of that. I'm actually amazed that you thought there were a lot of papers about architecture. I don't quite see it that way at all. I'm not sure about this built environment business because I'm not sure that schools of architecture necessarily identify with the term built environment. Our own department is architecture and built environment. And they're really quite the efforts that we have to pull them together, yet they're quite separate. And I've been trying to engage with schools of architecture for quite a long time now, and they just do not get CIB at all. and keep hammering away at it, but they just don't get it. And even here, you know, I had a meeting with the Dean of the School of Architecture, you know, the equivalent to Ron, and they're in completely different schools, you know. It's difficult. So I feel quite strongly about that. The other thing you mentioned about membership, I find incredibly confusing, because sometimes it's a university, sometimes it's a faculty, sometimes it's a department, and I find that really hard to deal with. And I don't quite understand why it's not each university that's a member, why it has to be at these different levels.
It's not. It can be. It's whatever level the university chooses.
Yeah, but there lies the problem. I think that you know, they decide, and it does get very confusing and very difficult to deal with.
But I mean, it's not at our end, because as far as we're concerned, Purdue is a member. That would include their architecture school. Well, it includes 2 different schools
We have
straight
two
away.
different schools, colleges.
And in your case, it would include the school, sorry, in a university that had separated architecture from built environment, it would include both schools. They could join in, the people from the Sustainable Development Department could join in, the people from history or geography could join in.
So what you're saying is that regardless of the label that's put on it, which is sometimes a department or a faculty or whatever, it's actually the university that is still a member.
Yes.
Well, can we advertise it like that? Because I'm not sure that various departments realise it. You know, they actually said to me, "Oh, it's not us that's a member; it's that lot over there." You know, so it needs to be represented as a university.
Well, it is in our communications. So, but I'm very happy to reinforce that message here and in all our future communications.
Yeah, I mean that
everything in our membership literature says the institution.
I mean, we would love to take 2. I think we'd love to take 2 membership fees from the same university.
But we don't.
No, I'm kidding. I was being sarcastic.
But we absolutely don't.
But we don't. So I mean, I think it's at the university's end in terms of how the internal communication, and if we can help facilitate.
Yeah.
If we can help facilitate that communication in any university or research institute, we are willing.
We can be a force for good to bring together different departments.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and I think that we need to do that. Yeah.
Perhaps we could reach out to all university members and say, could you identify other departments in your university that might benefit from?
Which we did as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Especially in my case, the schools of architecture.
Yes, that sounds
You know.
right, yeah.
And it's amazing how poor the communication is, you're right, within an institute.
Oh, it's terrible.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, you're absolutely right.
You know.
But and if we can help in that, we can. We would need help in understanding how we could help. Do you see what I'm saying? It's the chicken or the egg thing.
I mean, I think they identify it by who actually pays the fee.
Yep.
I mean, in our case, it's the faculty that pays the fee. Now, the faculty is a heck of a lot bigger than architecture, built environment. There's all sorts of other things in the faculty. But even so, you know, you're right, you know, and I'm part of that university, and I still can't get through to people like the School of Architecture telling them, look, you are a member. How more clearly do I need to say this? You know, I'm in the School of Architecture and we are a member. You know, it honestly drives me on the bend, but you know. So there's all that. And actually, while I've got the microphone in my hand, if I can just go on about a few other things as well. I feel very strongly about in person. I think this digital stuff is no substitute at all for being in person. I find the compromise is just so hard to deal with. The time zones around the world, you know, the interaction, all sorts of things. And I'm personally going to take a lot of persuading to get involved in more things online. Because quite frankly, I've had enough of them, you know, and I just think in person is the only way to properly deal with things.
You don't like 3 a.m. sessions?
Oh, I love them. Oh, yeah. And I love people supposed to be online with me, but they forgot to wake up, you know.
I respect that view, and I respect the other view, and all the views in between. You know, at the very least, there is scope for CIB publishing a top 10 tips of how to do these things well rather than badly, because there are good online and hybrid, and there is bad online and hybrid. And Mike is a fantastic example of someone, for example, who has made sure that every meeting of any substance is held twice, 12 hours apart. Now, you could argue that means that half the community doesn't meet the other half of the community, but what it does deal with is the time zone problem straight away. And Ron Wakefield copied that with the scientific committee for World Building Congress 2022. I'm not, by the way, holding this up as some panacea. I'm merely pointing out there are tips, there are good ideas around that we have been capturing, that I have seen, that I have experienced, and that others in the team have experienced, that I think would help any conference organiser in the CIB network, and there are many of them, to do a better job, whichever format they chose.
Yeah, but it isn't worked out though, Don. I mean, my experience here. I mean, I had one as early as I could get in the morning, which wasn't really early enough, and as one as late as I could at night, which wasn't really late enough. I actually got locked out of the building. I couldn't even get into the building because all the people had gone home for the late one. Just by chance, I got into the building. I've got a meeting this afternoon that neither of those groups can come to because it doesn't suit either of them. I find it really difficult, this online business, and
it is difficult. It has to be worked out. As do face-to-face conferences, as do online.
Yeah. So for me, face-to-face is the answer.
I understand, and other people agree with you, and most people agree that it's they are the most effective. But also there is a big community which thinks that they can't be as frequent as they used to be.
If I may comment on that.
I'll stop talking now. Give this to somebody else. You, Mark.
Well, I just wanted to make a comment and perhaps an observation in that I'm engaged in a lot of global groups in a meeting very frequently. But if I reflect on the past couple of years that we all dealt with in pandemic, all of those groups would have gone under had it not been for online meetings and still maintaining that connection and letting the activities flow through. So I definitely see a value in that online proposition. And my personal opinion is that that's here to stay. We all realized, prior to that, just to give you an example, prior to the pandemic, March 2020, when we would have these global meetings, first 15 minutes would go in, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Are you okay? Can I see you? 15 minutes. And then rest of the 45 would go in, okay, I didn't hear that last part, what you said, a big problem, right? But look at what has happened since March of 2020 coming to now. We have hundreds of people online, nobody's dropping off, communication is clear. So technology has caught up with us. And I'm really grateful for that because that's, nobody's wasting time in that sense. So I personally, just my personal opinion, that I have come to realize that is here to stay. And it is for me to adjust to how best to use that technology to whatever I'm engaged with. So that's really my opinion on that.
I really must shut up now, but if I just briefly respond to that, I think the last two and a half years have been, I think the last two and a half years have been a needs must. I agree with you that lots of things would have disappeared if we hadn't continued online, but that was just to see us through, in my view. And I'm really worried about it because I can see universities immediately seeing this as a means of saving money. Oh, you've done it for online for the last two and a half years. Why can't you carry on doing it online? It'll be nice and cheap for us. So, look.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
No, that's all right. I'm saying something. You say something, Monty.
First of all, I just want to agree with the view that I think probably the words about building, maybe it's not about the words, but
Before I joined Liverpool John Moores UK, I was working for Istanbul Technical University, which is an engineering university, and I was a member of civil engineering department as a construction management specialist, let's say. And I can tell you that being in off-site construction work commission, trying to understand how we can shape the future of off-site construction, I realized that there are lots of work going on within the civil engineering department, lots of researchers there, but they are not aware of what we are doing, and they are not within this conference. I was thinking about how to attract them. How can I involve them within that group and within that research area? Because they are doing something very similar. They are solving a part of that puzzle in parallel. So they must be involved, I believe. And it may be, how can I say, I'm not talking about a communication problem. I'm sure that the information or that message is being sent to all schools, or all universities, all associations, but maybe it's about how they receive them. Maybe it's about the contact persons in that universities or associations. They must maybe, in a way, communicate this information to everyone. And again, about another comment, for example, in Istanbul Technical University, architecture department is a member of CIB, or at least I was thinking in that way. And I was thinking why civil engineering is not. But now I learned that technical university was the member. This, again, should be, I think, communicated to everyone. I just want to give this as a feedback for future, because I think we can improve this. And I also want to, how can I say, thank you for the future agenda. I think rather than a re-energizing, I think you're transforming CIB to a platform.
To a platform.
Yeah, it's a platform. I think more than a network, now it becomes a platform where needs, or how can I say, bodies with the needs and resources can meet, as far as I can see it. Or maybe maybe I'm wrong. I'm sorry for this, but as far as I can say,
your perception.
Because at the end of the day, yes, being a network is great. Meeting with people, perfect, and having this collaboration, perfect. Yeah. But how we can engage with the industry, how we can meet with them, because at the end of the day, what we are trying to do is we are trying to provide solutions. We are trying to, as we put here, yes, we are trying to contribute to sustainability targets. And if you are trying to do that, I think we need more engagement. We need to move we need to move forward like a research, yes, a research network, but as you say, providing solutions to other stakeholders. I think the new model, the new business model, I will say, that you present just shows this as a new platform. And I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you. It's very thoughtful comment, very deep comment.
Yeah, I like the word platform, and I'll be thinking about that. And so thank you for saying that word. And I'm going to really, I think we need to think about that word, and that's an interesting word. Thank you.
It is. What's it mean? Platform. Well, I'll let you know in about 2 weeks.
Oh, right. I can't come up with it now, but
well,
at least do want it
right. Like most words in the lexicon, it means different things to different people. Yeah, exactly. I'm very clear that what
give
it means.
Me 2 glasses of wine, and I'll let you know.
Right. Tonight, then.
You know, we have the ECTP, the European Construction Technology Platform, present as a keynote speaker, Paul Cox-Oval, yesterday, if you remember. And so I know exactly what that platform does.
And I think you stated
yes.
Something to facilitate beyond the simple engagement with your colleagues, the facilitation of perhaps funding opportunities, facilitation of joint research opportunities, facilitation of getting contemporary knowledge from our industry partners to see what really is local areas as far as the platform is concerned.
Yeah, that got me thinking about this as a platform word, or the more a unifying theme for different parts of the university to actually come together. I'm thinking now to somehow promote this CIB within the university and talk to other colleges and other schools and say, look, if your school of safety, health and safety sciences, do you have anything connected to construction? Let's work together. That's a unifying theme. I never thought it that way, because we are the school who are paying this for this. We are the unit that paying for this. So we always say it is our membership. But that was a very good point. The second point that Bob mentioned was very true. Our university just released a revised travel policy early this year. It's going to be very difficult in the future to go. This is a carbon reductions, and New Zealand is quite strict on that. So it will be a little bit more difficult to do that in person. I know some universities in Australia is actually saying to their staff, we're not paying for you to come to conferences, so you go pay for yourself, basically. It's been like that in the last couple of years. So there's no answer to that, but I personally can see the value of face-to-face, of course. I have questions for well, mainly for you, Don, probably, because you're asking this, what can be added, what can, kind of new ideas that you kind of bring to this. I would like to understand a little bit more about, you mentioned to me the other day, on Monday, I think, about the subsidiary in Canada. As a legal entity or as an incorporation, kind of, what is the actual, what can be done, what cannot be done? How far can we go into commercial activities? Or I need to understand the rules of play before we can suggest anything. I'm not suggesting we're going into commercial. It's just an example. What are the limits? What are the parameters that we can, as an organization, what can we do with what can we do?
I genuinely think the best way to think about that question is that there are almost no limits, because smart people can find a way around any of these so-called boundaries. Both entities, the entity in the Netherlands still exists under Dutch law. It's an association under Dutch law. The association in Canada is a not-for-profit company limited by guarantee. Both, therefore, are subject to different jurisdictions, and both are subject to similar principles of governance in terms of the not-for-profit aspects. Commercially, so a good lawyer, even a half-decent lawyer, here's the challenge you made, and they find the right way through that structure to achieve what you want to achieve. So for sure, both organisations could receive £1 million sponsorship from the private sector without any difficulty whatsoever, provided it spent it. And trust me, we're not short of ideas for spending money. We're short of ideas for earning the money in the first place.
For example, if we are, let's say we're pulling the funds from different agencies from different countries, where is that money going to sit? How we disperse that to other countries? Not, that kind of technicalities.
Mark and I have discussed this at some length, and there are scenarios, because in principle you could set up 200 not-for-profit organisations in 200 different countries around the world. So we won't
what we're going to do,
because that would be a silly thing to do at the moment, because we have no prospect of receiving money from 200 countries. But we have contingency plans like that, which would be possible. And with a half-decent so-called corporate lawyer, NGO lawyer, you would find your way through to an effective and cost-efficient structure for doing that, which was, by cost-efficient, I include tax-efficient way of doing it. We have discussed that in the context of fundraising, so, for example, just to give you an idea of where we got to this, we have clearly already got not-for-profit entities in the Netherlands and the USA. You could argue that means you've got not-for-profit entities in 2 different continents. You could take the view that the next 3 places we're going to be able to be successful in raising lots of money might be Australia, Hong Kong, or somewhere else, and you might therefore, once one saw the opportunity, establish not-for-profit entities in those 2 jurisdictions, such that you can go to the funder in Australia and say, by the way, this investment will go into this Australian not-for-profit entity, and if you so wish, can be ring-fenced and, but only for investment in Australian talent or in Australian to support Australian researchers. Yeah. Until we have a seriously hot lead that wants to discuss those sorts of things, we wouldn't want to set up any formal global structure of that kind. We are clear, though, that if you raised money in New Zealand, you probably don't want it held in Canada, let alone, and there's certainly going to be some people who have a more parochial view of fundraising. So, for example, an American institution might donate money but want to ring fence it for the benefit of American research or American individuals. Absolutely open to all of that, What I'm clear about is we don't use our governance to as an excuse to stop doing things. We find the most efficient ways to get around them or to facilitate what we do want to achieve.
I think if I may just add to that. Thanks. If I may just add to that, one more thought that Don alluded to is that the whole objective of third-party funding is to offset resource scarcity at the local level and facilitate research across the membership. And for the first point, what I mean is that, like Don mentioned, in the US or anywhere else for that matter, a company might be willing to provide resources, but only for the students that they recruit or only the universities that they deal with, which is perfectly all right. They're offsetting the expense for that particular unit to be able to continue their participation in CIB. So there in itself, we have an advantage. The second part of that is collaboration for research. And as we all know, if the money comes through our university takes overhead charges because they're managing the funds, and the rest goes to the PIs. And it's the same concept, just that here, the agency receiving the funds would be the Secretariat, offsetting overhead expenses at the Secretariat. So again, it's offsetting expenses that saves us from dipping into the membership pool to take care of all the expense resources. And that there in itself is a benefit. We are just leveraging the power we have, which is very strong in terms of research, to offset expenses that are wholly rely on a membership revenue.
Are any of our friends still online? There's no chat coming through from online. Okay, that's fine. There's about another 25 minutes left in the session, so if you're happy just carrying on chatting, let's come on to the next topic.
So back to the question of how known. Let's say I'm using Purdue as an example. My school is paying membership fee for the Purdue. Mark and his faculty members, whoever is the member, but I'm speaking for myself. I don't know about Mark, it's probably better. I haven't done anything as far as the communicating to anybody within the university, different colleges, explaining, hey, by the way, we are members of CIB, meaning you are automatically member of CIB. So I'm wondering, it's almost like if we can, but we all have, who knows how many memberships. I mean, I presume I'm probably member of at least 10 organizations. So you have responsibilities. It's almost like having a champion within the university. So let's say Purdue, and we say Purdue or any institution, and we kind of almost like brief these people and somehow give them almost like training. Listen, you are going to serve as CIB ambassador or whatever, champion for the Purdue University. And please try to spread the word as much as you can to as many colleges, blah, 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 try to attract interest. So it's really, that's not CIB. I mean, CIB can take a lead to kind of organize, but it's up to the individual members identifying maybe one guy and saying, hey, spread the word and try to get the interest. So something to think about, something to think about.
We certainly encourage that. I mean, Debbie posted on the website some standard collateral, which was asked for by one of our members, but which has since been used by several. which was just a simple standard slide deck that they could use when they were next talking to their own departmental meeting. They just wanted to show a few slides to tell everybody, to share with everybody else. You know, stuff like that. And there's all sorts of collateral available to download on the website to support that. Yeah, the idea of champions or ambassadors, you know, I love the terms. Well, I used to run an organisation that had lots of champions, and indeed it was part of their brand. And so if ambassadors is a word that we want to launch out there, we can create that sort of thing, can't we? Because I think I sense, and you know, one of the things I want to make a point, and I take the point about transformation versus re-energisation, but if I could use the word re-energising for a minute, I do think the fact we've come together for 4 days, you can see the re-energising in people's eyes. You know, people are loving it, but being back together again face to face. So from our point of view, it feels like we should strike while the iron is hot, if you know what I mean. It's like take advantage of this energy within the next few weeks, and do some stuff, do something to take advantage of that energy, or to even, you know, ignite the energy still further. That's a terrible mixing of metaphors. But I think you know what I mean.
I just wanted to say a few more positive things. I think CIB's come on a long way in the last few years. I remember it's probably Tampere, when I was trying to get across to the people at the conference there that I didn't think it was about just doing presentations for papers that they'd written for a conference. It was much more about how we develop, how do we get those papers into journals, how do we start putting teams together with people for writing, how do we involve people who haven't much experience in writing with those that have, and putting those sort of teams together, how we get teams together for funding bids. And I pushed that again in Hong Kong. Yeah. So I'm absolutely delighted to see all the things that you guys are doing, because I think that for many years, I thought that CIB was very static and declining, in fact, because everything that I and other colleagues suggested just got batted back to us, you know, just saying, well, you know, that's up for you to do kind of attitude. And now seeing initiatives from CIB itself, I think is really great. And so you know, I'm delighted what you guys are doing with you know, third-party funding and bringing journals on board and everything. That's what I've always wanted for years, really. So I just wanted to say, you know, well done, really.
Yeah, I really do appreciate that, Bob. Thank you. And so, you know, the team is here, so everybody appreciates that. You said something very interesting in there. You said about bringing together consortium to bid for project, forming consortium to bid for projects. This is something which Mike's been working hard on for 2 years. We are desperate for the first consortium. I think there's been 3 or 4 that have submitted bids. We are desperate to hear there are 3 that have submitted bids. None of them have yet won. Boy, are you going to see some celebration and some PR with the first one that wins as a result of CIB having intervened and facilitated such a consortium, because we need to get better at it. Clearly, you know, none out of 3 is not a great success rate yet.
Well, 0 out of 2. We're still waiting on the 3rd one.
Okay. So we might be.
Well, if it is a consolation, you know, a good funding agency's success rate is 1 in 10. So.
Well, yeah.
No.
Don't we know it?
That's not a great consolation.
We're doing good.
Yeah.
But those are things too, I think, that we need to do a better job of.
You know, I think we need to do a better job of communicating those 3 bids that were the 2 that were unsuccessful, the 3rd we'll see, and that these are examples of things where, you know, CIB, so we put together really what I would consider to be global collaborative bids. So I don't see CIB bringing together researchers from New Zealand or from the UK or from the US. I mean, but we bring researchers together from around the globe, and that's unique. So like, for example, the bid that we have out right now, I mean, it's an absolutely perfectly written bid for CIB because it asks for global comparisons of X. And it's like, wow, yeah, well, we have global researchers that we can bring together. We, so this team that Billy Hare put together, I helped, but it has researchers from 5 different continents, which is exciting. And to be able to do that, it's pretty cool. And so, if it was a bid that was about, Brazil or the US, we probably wouldn't have a big role in that or have a big impact in that. But in terms of bringing global researchers together, Billy can make a call, I can make a call, somebody else can say, oh yeah, well, we need to get so-and-so involved. Oh yeah. And the next thing you know, you have too many people. Yeah, and but those are the types of things that I think, and that's one bid. This is one bid I think we got a real good shot at, And
the quality.
Yeah, well, so I mean, quite frankly, Billy put it. There was another one that I think Don found through the Lloyd's Register Foundation that was up, kind of the W99 alley as well too, and Billy. But I mean, quite frankly, honestly, that we put that bid together pretty haphazardly and in a hurry, and I didn't expect us to win that one. And then there was another small funding from Lloyd's that I, based on something that I was interested in, I put together and got some folks around the world involved. But this latest one was actually something that's funded by an organization called INCHBO, the International something. But it was right up Billy's alley. And so if we can communicate those things, and so then maybe that plants a seed in other commissions when they see bids like that in their own disciplines and their own spheres of influence. So I think we need to do a better job of announcing how we've now, I think, sort of figured out how to run it and organize it.
You mean a bid, how to run a bid of that?
How to run a bid and how, and then the financial aspect of it. And
the corollary of what you're saying as well is that we need to be better at talking to the sorts of institutions that want to fund global consortia instead of merely domestic national consortia. I mean, we found in the third-party funding group in Canada that we were able to identify some financial institutions there who had all the researchers in Canada they needed, thank you very much. What they wanted was the perspective of the rest of the world, and we absolutely rang that bell for them, and they wanted more and more conversations. Once they sussed that there was this potential, they were into talking. Now we haven't got a clear proposition or clear, invitation to bid for funding yet, but it's a work in progress, and it's a good example. And the United Nations would be another example, clearly, of a body that's looking for global.
I think we're both saying it's absolutely true. There's the value of CIB that gives you the sort of global reach. But if I might say, Mike, I think that one of the tricks to winning bids is long lead time. I think one of the worst aspects is finding out too late about it, and you don't stand a chance then cobbling something together. But I also think, come back to what you were saying, Mark, that's the importance of your directory of expertise amongst CIB, so that everybody knows, who does what when we start.
Thanks. What I was saying was that if perhaps down the road, if you're able to put together a web page where we just are putting together information about different RFPs around the world, where global collaboration would be of some importance, all our members need to do is go there, click on it, and say, okay, here's an opportunity I want to put together. Perhaps get with Mike or Don to see what the procedure needs to be, and run with it.
Well, and actually, we should have announced this on day one. Maybe we can announce it tomorrow or tonight, or the Andrew Agyapu. I had a conversation with Andrew about the European Commission's doctoral network. And I'm not articulating that very well at this point in time, but I mean, maybe we can announce something around that tomorrow, see if there's some interest.
Yeah.
The
pressure on the timetable for program tomorrow is extraordinary, but I take your point. The problem, by the way, with that bid is A, you announce a European thing down in Australia, and B, it isn't open to people outside Europe. Indeed, it isn't open to Bob.
Well, but it's open to an organization that has an address in the Netherlands.
It is indeed, but that's not announced anything.
Oh, we've got one of those.
Well, yeah, I mean, so. Yeah, and so maybe there's some, maybe it's not a large announcement, but maybe it's a strategic electronic communication to.
We haven't got a position or to do with the opportunity, so we haven't, and let alone publish it on the web.
Yeah.
I'd be loath to that actually. So.
Well, yeah, and we've been so busy, I haven't debriefed. I haven't debriefed you guys on this yet, so it's probably premature.
Get this away from me.
Anyone else?
No, it's yours.
But that's an example. And it has a lead time until November.
Thanks.
Which is right around the corner.
I mean, European Union is giving out. Sorry, thanks. I mean, European Union is giving out so many funds that are available to all and across European countries.
And beyond, some of the programs are going beyond.
Right. So I think if we can figure out a way of how to get our teams together so that they can apply for these grants, I think that would be a great benefit for at least for our European contingent, right?
On the point about a research directory, I brought with me, and it's disappeared. So someone's picked it up thinking it was a giveaway, and it isn't. I brought with me the research directory from which year? The book that was left on our table? You have it? Okay, good. So, which year? 2003. CIB published a research directory every year. That's a nice, thick, expensive to produce publication. I brought it with me as a reminder to folk that some of these ideas were always there. And we can look back in our own catalogues and think, hang on, what's the modern equivalent of some of this stuff?
Right.
Does it have real value back in the day, clearly? And it's a fascinating read. It's a depressing read as well to see how many members there were and what capability there was in 2003 that right now doesn't appear to be in our platform.
Platform, whatever that is.
I think we just need to revitalize that. I'm sure they're there, just that we haven't captured that together again. So I'm pretty sure that if we do that exercise that we're thinking of, we will find all that hidden talent. Anybody else wants to drop an idea?
There's 10 more minutes on the clock, but you might want to be walking to your next session.
Tricia, you want to say something?
We can gift you 10 minutes of time if you like.
Yeah, just a couple of things, really. I think it's been, I was in Brazil in November at a conference, and then there was this very older professor talking about the CIB and how important the CIB used to be, and the fact that the CIB conference proceedings were the place to go to actually find out what was the latest research going around the world, And I wonder that I think maybe with all these things with electronic conference proceedings and things like that, I'm not sure if it's the media itself, but it's just not as easy for people to identify the CIB as a place to go to find out where are the latest research trends, So this is something I truly believe we need to try and do something about. And I don't know what the answer is for that, but that used to be the main value proposition. Really, is about, not only connecting people but ensuring that we knew what was going on, what were the latest trends, in research globally around architecture and construction management. And within this issue of the second one you have there about supporting tomorrow's talent, one thing I've been talking about to a number of people is maybe we should be organizing in a year and a half time an ECR conference, which focuses on actually supporting the development of early career researchers and focuses on helping them understand what are the next steps as soon as they finish their PhDs, how to get funding, how to build networks, how to select, okay, I'm going to be a professor of what, so that they have to help them actually develop their career path. And I think that would be something of importance, that it would be relatively easy to be done. Exactly. We used to do that in Salford, and it was, I remember it was my first conference, it was in Portugal, and it was just great. Yeah. But it's just that there isn't something of that magnitude, and using the CIB to budget, I think would be an excellent thing. We just need to find some funding, to actually make it happen so we can support the students. But I'm sure you'll find ways of doing that. So just wanted to share that as an idea. Yeah.
We should link in with that. Sorry.
I think CIB is credible, Bob, and has the confidence now to start reaching out and linking in with more things. I think maybe we felt we were weakened on the back foot in more recent years, sort of alluding to a comment you made earlier. But I think we've got enough substance to what we're about. I think this Congress has really confirmed that in my eyes, and so where there are opportunities to connect with other organisations and offer our help, I think that will be of value to them now, where they might not have thought of.
And I think that would be a good one to link in with.
Because I like Patricia's comment about the proceedings used to be such a key thing. Because the opportunity we're going to have is that Mike is publishing the proceedings on the website. So their Scopus index,
so
what linked published by the IOP and linked from our website. The opportunity is to pull traffic towards that single source, and not the single source because it's accessible in a number of ways, but to see CIB as a place where you come to find those proceedings and the value that adds that Patricia referred to.
Yeah, and I think it's a it's a double-edged sword though, because so what I find, personal opinion, about the previous CIB proceedings is that you're spot on right. They were a source of, I guess, and maybe you guys can help me here, but it seems to me that those earlier CIB conferences, at least earlier in my lifetime or my career, 20, years ago, they're more a source of ideas, an idea generation source, throwing things out and getting people around the room to debate things. And
source of value, that's the point. Whatever value you take.
But now, I see a lot of things in recent times as more of a, oh yeah, this is my opportunity to get a publication out there. So, I mean, like I sat in some sessions, and I'm going to be a little bit critical here. I sat in some sessions and I said to Alistair Gibb, I said, well, I've seen this presentation 15 times over the last 15 years. It was, one time it was done in India, and they did the same perception survey and they ran their structural equation model and they came up with the same conclusion. And 3 years ago, I saw the same thing when it was done in Portugal, and then it was done in Germany. And so it's a double-edged sword in terms of, people aren't necessarily generating really, really new ideas. It's sometimes seen as just a source to get a publication out there, to say that you have a publication. If you don't get, I see you nodding. a little bit. And so some of those older proceedings I found extremely valuable to jar new ideas.
Yeah, so I think there's a need for us as well to recognize the importance and value of a conference publication, you know, in the academic world. In the past, it was seen as something important and good to do, and you know, and nowadays it's nearly like, okay, why are you publishing in a conference? You should be publishing in open access, gold access journals, right? So I think this is something else we need to look into, and maybe try to be more active in actually having those special issues of journals running together with the conference, but running before the conference. And then the conference publication is also a journal publication, which actually ticks then the boxes for all academics. So you need to look into that as well. And I think it's a very good way to also help improve the quality of the papers that we get, you know. It will be, Bob, because you have, it's a different thing when you're publishing a peer-reviewed review conference publication, always, regardless.
Yeah, but doing it before the conference, I think, is asking a bit much.
If you leave it for after, it doesn't happen.
Well, I think we need to make sure that it does happen. I think asking people to do a journal paper before they do a conference paper, I think you're just reducing the opportunity for conference papers personally. You know, it's a tough business, this publishing in journals, you know, and it's getting harder all the time. So I think that's asking a bit much. But I wouldn't dismiss conference papers. You know, I've referenced conference papers in journal papers. Some of them have been very good. I don't think there's any problem with that. And I think that the problem with conferences in the past was that the papers weren't very searchable in the way that books weren't. And of course, what we find now in writing our papers is that we can search, you know, books online the same way as we can search journals online, and we should be able to search the conference papers online as well. And you know, they should appear when we search particular topics. CIB conference papers should appear so that people do reference them, and you know, that's how you get you know, use in the academic community is when you start seeing conference papers referenced in journal papers, and you know, then people start to pick up on those references, and that, I mean, that's the way I think it grows.
Which, partly else, is a good reminder before Mark has the final word in the session. It's a good reminder that a number of the partner journals of CIB, the encouraged journals and the recognised journals, are going to be publishing special issues, of course. And I think the jury on World Building Congress 2022 will need to be out at least until we see some of those special issues come through to understand for me anyway, to understand the whole process and the whole value added of this intervention every 3 years for World Building Congress. But it's going to stimulate special issues for at least the next 12 months. 12 to 18 months, and then we'll be well into planning for Indianapolis 2025.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think just to clarify, what I meant is not having the conference paper and the journal paper all at once. Is instead of having the conference paper, you have the journal paper, which is also part of the conference proceedings. And that's why it needs to be done beforehand. And that's why then you have that body of knowledge, which is more easily used for citation purposes and so on.
Is that one of the other bridges that Mike built over the last 2 years was the relationship with editors of partner journals. So we have a great relationship with those editors now, and they trust us and they respect us and they are open to conversations about things like this. And so again, another group of stakeholders who are coming forward with ideas.
And we're having an open session tomorrow, last session of the day, with Emerald journals.
Yeah. Well, we've actually been contacted by an editor of a very demanding journal who's interested. I think it was 3 or 4 papers from our session.
Yes,
which I thought.
And that's really what I was going to touch upon also. That, you know, if you think about from our academic world, it's publish or perish. So if you think now that in context of young academics, they need to get their publications out. Plus, they will need to lock down their ideas so as they're developing, you know, they can come out as a good journal paper. So I think there's definite value for a conference paper. But having said that, I agree with Patricia that there needs to be more value. And I think, Bob, you touched upon that just now when you said journals are approaching you. And I think that's the value add. What I've seen to be successful is that to invite editors to go through the proceedings and identify papers that have potential for a good journal paper, and reach out to the authors to develop that further into a journal paper. Now, how often do we know that people write conference papers when there's really nothing behind it? And we don't want those kind of papers getting into journals for sure. Well, they won't, will they? And they won't either, right? I mean, so clearly, if there are good editors, and we have 50 journals that are partners with us. 30 officially recognized journals. Even if we have half of those editors show up at a WBC or any of these other conferences and sort out 5 papers out of a session, that's excellent, right? That's a good value add.
Just a quick comment. I know this is a few minutes. Yes, I think it's somehow driven by the research assessment in different countries. So, for example, in Australia and New Zealand, the research assessment exercise is recognizing conference papers, but not in our discipline. So, if you're in IT, for example, there are certain conferences in IT that can be submitted as your EREs, examples of research excellence. What we need to do is to convince those panels who are assessing research in different countries that there's value in CIB conference papers. Yeah.
Hopefully when we go to IOP, they will. Hopefully when we go to the Institute of Physics.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I say one last point? The Director General of CIB was actually on our panel for one of the research assessment exercises in the UK years ago. Maybe we should get Donald.
And goodness me, you want someone better than me on a panel like that. But the principle is, I would like to see CIB as a natural place where you would go for global expertise to be on such an assessment panel. How we then find the right person to represent us is a second question, because it's very unlikely to be Don Ward, Bob, I can assure you. Exactly. There are people on our board. So I want to say thank you very much for coming. That has been very rich for me, and I hope there's been something in it for you. I really appreciate your time. We've had here the CIB President, the CIB Vice President, the co-chair of CIB World Building Congress 2025, the coordinator of Working Commission 96. I deeply apologize. I've said before in people say I'm hopeless on the numbers. Board member for a new board member from New Zealand, the program director, the membership and communications manager, and the chief executive. So we've all, I think, taken a lot from that discussion. Thank you very much for your time. Cheers.